My name is Opal Martinez, and I'm 68 years old. Last Thursday night, my husband Theodore told me something that made my blood run cold. You can tell anyone you want about what I've done, Theodore said, standing over me in our bedroom with a cruel smile on his face. But no one will ever believe you. You're a confused old woman with memory problems. I've made sure everyone knows that. So go ahead, try to tell people. Watch what happens when they all think you're losing your mind. I sat on the edge of our bed, trembling with anger and fear. Theodore had just admitted to doing something terrible, something that had been destroying me for months. And now he was telling me that even if I told the truth, no one would believe me because he'd spent months convincing everyone that I was mentally declining. But Theodore made one critical mistake. He underestimated me. The next day, I did something that made everyone believe me. I presented evidence so overwhelming, so undeniable, that Theodore's carefully constructed lies came crashing down. Within 24 hours, everyone knew the truth. Within 48 hours, Theodore's life was destroyed. Within a week, he was facing criminal charges. My husband said no one would ever believe me. The next day, everyone did. And Theodore learned that underestimating a 68-year-old woman was the biggest mistake of his life. But to understand how I proved the truth and destroyed Theodore's lies, you need to understand the whole story. You need to know about the gaslighting, the manipulation, and the months of psychological abuse that led to that moment when Theodore made his fatal mistake. Theodore and I have been married for 45 years. We got married when I was 23 and he was 25. For most of those years, we had a good marriage. Theodore worked as an accountant. I worked as a teacher until I retired 5 years ago. We raised 2 children, Raymond, 42, and Geneva, 39, who both live in other states now with their own families. When I retired, Theodore suggested we downsize. The house is too big for just the 2 of us, he said. Let's sell it and buy a smaller condo. We can use the extra money from the sale to travel and enjoy our retirement. It made sense. Our house was a 4-bedroom, 2-story home that we'd raised our children in. Now it was just Theodore and me rattling around in all that space. So we sold the house and bought a 2-bedroom condo in a nice retirement community. The house sold for $485,000. After paying off the remaining mortgage and closing costs, we had $380,000 left. Theodore suggested we put that money into a joint investment account that he would manage. I'm an accountant, Theodore reminded me. I know how to invest money to get good returns. Trust me. And I did trust him. Theodore had always handled our finances. I'd never had a reason not to trust him. That was my first mistake. About 5 months ago, I started noticing that Theodore was acting strangely. He'd become more critical of me, more impatient. He'd snap at me for small things, forgetting to buy something at the grocery store, misplacing my keys, asking him to repeat something he'd said. Opal, this is the 3rd time this week you've forgotten something at the store, Theodore would say irritably. Are you having memory problems? I don't think so, I'd say. I just forgot to check the list before I left. That's a memory problem, Theodore would insist. Forgetting things is a memory problem. At first, I brushed it off. Everyone forgets things sometimes, but Theodore kept bringing it up. Every time I'd forget something, even something small, Theodore would make a big deal about it. You forgot to pay the electric bill this month, Theodore said one day, showing me a late notice. Opal, this is serious. You're becoming forgetful. I thought you were paying that bill, I said, confused. You said you'd take care of all the bills now that we're retired. I never said that, Theodore said firmly. You must have misunderstood. See, that's another sign your memory is going. This started happening more and more. Theodore would tell me one thing, then later claim he'd said something completely different. When I'd insist he was wrong, he'd look at me with concern and say, Opal, I'm worried about you. You're not remembering things correctly. I started doubting myself. Maybe my memory was getting worse. I was 68 after all. Maybe this was normal aging. But then I noticed something strange. I'd look for something in the house, my reading glasses, my phone, my car keys, and they'd be in places I knew I hadn't put them. My glasses would be in the refrigerator. My phone would be in the bathroom drawer. My keys would be in the kitchen pantry. Why would I put my glasses in the refrigerator? I'd ask Theodore. I don't know, Theodore would say. But Opal, you really need to see a doctor about this. This isn't normal. After a month of this, I was so worried about my memory that I made an appointment with my doctor, Dr. Curtis Thompson. Dr. Thompson, I'm worried I might have dementia or Alzheimer's, I told him. I keep forgetting things and putting things in strange places. My husband is very concerned. Dr. Thompson ran some cognitive tests. He asked me questions, had me remember lists of words, asked me to draw a clock and perform other mental tasks. After the testing, Dr. Thompson sat down with me. Mrs. Martinez, I don't see any signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Your cognitive function is completely normal for someone your age. You performed very well on all the tests. But I keep forgetting things, I said, and putting things in weird places, like I found my glasses in the refrigerator yesterday. Do you remember putting your glasses in the refrigerator? Dr. Thompson asked. No, I admitted. I don't remember doing that at all. Well, that's actually a good sign, Dr. Thompson said. If you had dementia, you probably wouldn't remember the incident at all. The fact that you remember finding your glasses in the refrigerator but don't remember putting them there suggests that maybe you didn't put them there. What do you mean? I asked. Is there anyone else in your house who might have moved your glasses? Dr. Thompson asked. Just my husband, I said. But why would Theodore put my glasses in the refrigerator? Dr. Thompson looked at me carefully. Mrs. Martinez, I'm going to be very direct with you. The symptoms you're describing, forgetting things, finding items in strange places, feeling confused about conversations, these can sometimes be caused by something other than dementia. What else could cause them? I asked. Gaslighting, Dr. Thompson said. Gaslighting, I repeated, confused. What's that? Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone makes another person doubt their own memory and perception of reality, Dr. Thompson explained. The person doing the gaslighting will move things around, deny saying things they said, insist things happen that didn't happen, all to make the victim think they're losing their mind. I felt my stomach drop. Are you saying my husband is doing that to me? I'm not saying anything for certain, Dr. Thompson said carefully. I'm just presenting another possibility. Mrs. Martinez, have you noticed any other changes in your husband's behavior? Any financial stress? Any relationship problems? I thought about it. Theodore has been more critical lately, more impatient with me. He keeps telling me I'm forgetful and need to see a doctor. That's why I'm here. And nothing else unusual? Dr. Thompson asked. No unexplained purchases, no unusual phone calls, no changes in routine. Well, I said slowly, Theodore has been getting a lot of mail from our investment company, and he's been very secretive about it. When I ask to see the statements, he says he'll show me later, but then never does. He says I wouldn't understand the statements anyway because they're complicated. Dr. Thompson nodded. Mrs. Martinez, I can't diagnose someone I haven't examined, but I want you to be aware that your cognitive function is normal. If you continue to experience these memory problems, I'd suggest paying attention to whether they follow any patterns. Keep a journal of incidents, and maybe consider keeping your valuables in a safe place where only you know the location. You really think Theodore might be gaslighting me? I asked. I think it's a possibility worth considering, Dr. Thompson said, but I could be completely wrong. Just be observant. After my appointment with Dr. Thompson, I started paying closer attention to what was happening. I started keeping a journal of the memory problems Theodore kept pointing out. And I noticed something strange. The memory problems only happened when Theodore was around. When Theodore was at work or out of the house, I didn't forget things or find objects in weird places. But the minute Theodore came home, suddenly I couldn't find my glasses or I'd forget something I was supposed to do. I also noticed that Theodore would sometimes subtly move things while I was in the room, then act surprised when I couldn't find them later. One day, I decided to test something. I put my reading glasses on the kitchen counter and made a mental note of their exact position, right next to the coffee maker, lenses facing up. Then I went to the bathroom for a few minutes. When I came back, my glasses were gone from the counter. I started looking for them, and Theodore walked into the kitchen. "Lose something?" he asked. "My glasses," I said. "I left them right here on the counter." "Are you sure?" Theodore asked. "Maybe you left them somewhere else and forgot." "No, I'm sure I left them here," I insisted. "I specifically remember putting them next to the coffee maker." "Well, they're not there now," Theodore said. "Check the refrigerator. You've been putting things in there lately." I opened the refrigerator, and sure enough, my glasses were on the shelf next to the milk. "See," Theodore said. "Opal, you really need to make another appointment with your doctor. This is getting worse." But here's what Theodore didn't know. I hadn't actually put my glasses down on the counter. I'd been holding them the entire time I was in the kitchen. The glasses I'd supposedly put on the counter were actually a spare pair I'd hidden in the pantry that morning. When I went to the bathroom, I'd taken the spare pair with me, which meant the glasses in the refrigerator hadn't been put there by me. They'd been put there by Theodore. Theodore was gaslighting me. Dr. Thompson had been right. But why? What was Theodore trying to accomplish by making me think I was losing my mind? I decided to do some investigating. One day when Theodore was at work, I decided to look at our investment account statements. Theodore always kept them in his home office, in a locked filing cabinet. But I knew where he kept the key, in a fake book on his bookshelf. I opened the filing cabinet and found the folder with our investment statements. What I saw made me feel sick. When we'd sold our house 6 months ago, we'd put $380,000 into the investment account. According to the most recent statement, the account now had only $127,000. Theodore had lost, or spent, $253,000 in 6 months. I sat at Theodore's desk, hands shaking as I looked through the statements. The money had been withdrawn in increments over the past 6 months. $20,000 here, $35,000 there, $50,000 in another transaction, all of it withdrawn by Theodore. But where had the money gone? What was Theodore doing with over $250,000? I looked through more files and found bank statements for an account I didn't recognize, a checking account in Theodore's name only. The statements showed regular deposits matching the withdrawals from our investment account. And they showed where the money was going, to someone named Minnie Parker. Theodore was sending thousands of dollars a month to Minnie Parker. Who was she? I took photos of all the statements with my phone, then carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Then I did what I probably should have done months ago. I hired a private investigator. The private investigator's name was Geneva Foster. I met with her at her office and showed her the photos of the financial statements. "My husband has withdrawn $253,000 from our joint investment account over the past 6 months, I explained. He's been sending the money to someone named Minnie Parker. I need to know who she is and what my husband is doing with our money." "I can help you with that," Geneva said. "But Mrs. Martinez, I need to warn you. When people hire me to investigate their spouses, they usually find out things they don't want to know. Are you prepared for that?" "I need to know the truth," I said firmly, "whatever it is." It took Geneva 2 weeks to find out everything. When she called me to come back to her office, her expression told me the news wasn't good. "Mrs. Martinez, I found Minnie Parker," Geneva said. "She's 32 years old. She works as a waitress at a restaurant downtown. And for the past 8 months, she's been having an affair with your husband." I felt like I'd been punched. Theodore is having an affair. "Yes," Geneva confirmed. "And he's been spending your money on her. According to my investigation, Theodore rented an apartment for Minnie. That's where $2,500 a month of your money is going. He bought her a car. That's where another $35,000 went. He's been taking her on trips, buying her expensive jewelry, and paying her bills. Mrs. Martinez, your husband has spent over $250,000 of your money on his mistress." I sat there in shock. Theodore had been cheating on me, spending our retirement money on another woman, and gaslighting me to cover it up. Why would he gaslight me? I asked. Why make me think I was losing my mind? Probably for 2 reasons, Geneva said. First, if you thought you were having memory problems, you'd be less likely to notice the financial irregularities. Second, if you did notice and tried to tell anyone, he could claim you were confused and forgetful. It's a way of discrediting you before you can expose him. What should I do? I asked. That's up to you, Geneva said. But if I were you, I'd talk to a divorce attorney before I confronted my husband. You need to protect yourself and your assets. I took Geneva's advice. I met with a divorce attorney named Raymond Curtis and showed him all the evidence. The financial statements, the private investigator's report, everything. Mrs. Martinez, this is pretty clear-cut, Raymond said. Your husband has been misappropriating marital funds for an extramarital affair. In a divorce, you'd be entitled to be compensated for that. But I think before we file for divorce, you should confront your husband and see if he's willing to negotiate a settlement. What kind of settlement? I asked. Well, he spent $253,000 of your marital assets on his affair, Raymond said. At minimum, he should pay that back. Plus, there's the issue of the gaslighting, the psychological abuse. That could factor into alimony considerations. I don't care about alimony, I said. I just want my money back. That was our retirement money, money I worked for, money from the house we built together, and he gave it to some 32-year-old woman. I understand, Raymond said. Let's see if your husband is willing to make this right before we proceed with divorce. Sometimes, when confronted with evidence, spouses will negotiate rather than face a contentious divorce. So I confronted Theodore. I waited until a Saturday when Theodore was home. I sat him down at the kitchen table and put all the evidence in front of him. The financial statements, the private investigator's report, photos of Theodore with Minnie. I know everything, I told Theodore. I know about Minnie Parker. I know about the money you've been giving her. I know about the apartment, the car, the trips, the jewelry. I know you've spent $253,000 of our money on your mistress. Theodore's face went white, then red, then he tried to lie. I don't know what you're talking about, Theodore said. This is crazy. You're confused, Opal. I'm not confused, I said, sliding the private investigator's report across the table. I hired an investigator. I have proof. So don't lie to me, Theodore. I know the truth. Theodore looked at the report. He saw the photos of him with Minnie. He saw the financial records, and his expression changed from denial to anger. You hired someone to spy on me, Theodore said furiously. How dare you? How dare I repeated, my voice rising. Theodore, you've been stealing from me. You've been having an affair. You've been gaslighting me, making me think I was losing my mind. And you're angry that I hired an investigator. This is a violation of privacy, Theodore said. This is a violation of our marriage, I shot back. Theodore, you've spent $253,000 of our retirement money on another woman, money I worked for, money from OUR house. How could you do this? Theodore was silent for a moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. So what are you going to do about it? Theodore asked coldly. Are you going to divorce me? Because let me tell you what will happen if you try. I'll tell everyone you're having memory problems. I'll tell them you're confused and paranoid. I've already laid the groundwork. I've been telling our kids, our friends, our neighbors that you've been forgetful lately. I've been taking you to the doctor for memory problems. Everyone already thinks you're declining mentally. So if you try to tell people about this, they'll just think it's your dementia talking. I stared at Theodore in horror. You've been planning this, telling people I have memory problems so they won't believe me if I find out about your affair. I've been protecting myself, Theodore said. And here's the truth, Opal. No one will ever believe you. You're a confused old woman with memory problems. I'm a respected accountant who's been married to you for 45 years and has been dutifully taking care of his declining wife. Who do you think people will believe? I have evidence, I said, pointing to the documents on the table. I have proof of what you've done. Evidence that you claim you found, Theodore said. But Opal, you've been having memory problems. You've been confused. For all anyone knows, you've misunderstood these documents because of your cognitive decline. That's what I'll tell people. That's what I'll tell our kids. That's what I'll tell the judge if you try to divorce me." Theodore leaned forward, his face cruel. "You can tell anyone you want about what I've done, but no one will ever believe you. You're a confused old woman with memory problems. I've made sure everyone knows that. So go ahead, try to tell people. Watch what happens when they all think you're losing your mind." Then Theodore stood up and walked out of the room, leaving me sitting at the table, trembling with anger and fear. That's when I realized Theodore wasn't just having an affair and stealing our money. He'd been systematically destroying my credibility for months, setting up a situation where no one would believe me even if I had proof. But Theodore made one critical mistake. He underestimated me. That night, I started planning. Theodore said no one would believe me, but I was going to make sure everyone did. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Smash that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. What should Opal do next? Have you experienced gaslighting? Where are you watching from? After Theodore walked out of the kitchen, leaving me with his threat, I sat at that table for a long time. Part of me was terrified. Theodore had spent months building a narrative that I was mentally declining. He'd told our children, our friends, our neighbors. He'd taken me to the doctor for memory problems. He'd created a situation where if I accused him of having an affair and stealing our money, people would think it was dementia talking. But another part of me was angry. Furious, actually. Theodore thought I was just a confused old woman he could manipulate and gaslight. He thought he could steal our retirement money, spend it on his mistress, and get away with it because no one would believe me. Theodore had underestimated me, and that was going to be his biggest mistake. That night, I called my divorce attorney, Raymond Curtis, and told him what had happened. Theodore said no one will believe me because he's convinced everyone I have memory problems, I explained. He said he's laid the groundwork with our kids, our friends, everyone. And he's right. If I start telling people about his affair and the money, they're going to think I'm confused. That's a serious problem, Raymond admitted. Gaslighting is hard to prove, and if your husband has successfully convinced people you're cognitively declining, it's going to be difficult to get them to believe your accusations. So what do? I asked. We need to present evidence in a way that's so overwhelming and undeniable that it overcomes any doubts about your credibility, Raymond said. We need to make it impossible for people to dismiss what you're saying as confusion or dementia. How do we do that? I asked. Raymond thought for a moment. Mrs. Martinez, do your children know about your recent doctor's visit? The one where the doctor said your cognitive function was completely normal. No, I said. Theodore scheduled that appointment. I don't think he ever told the kids the results because the doctor said I was fine. That wouldn't fit Theodore's narrative. Perfect, Raymond said. Here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow, you're going to call your children and ask them to come visit this weekend for a family meeting. Tell them you need to discuss something important. What am I going to tell them? I asked. Everything, Raymond said. But not just by telling them. You're going to show them. We're going to present all the evidence at once. The financial statements, the private investigator's report, the photos of Theodore with his mistress, your doctor's report saying you're cognitively normal. We're going to present it all in one devastating package that makes it impossible for anyone to claim you're confused. Will they believe me? I asked. They will if we do this right, Raymond said. Mrs. Martinez, your husband said no one would ever believe you. Tomorrow, we're going to prove him wrong. The next morning, I called both my children. Raymond, 42, lives in California with his wife Estelle and their 2 teenagers. Geneva, 39, lives in Texas with her husband Curtis and their 3 young children. Raymond, I need you and Geneva to come home this weekend, I told my son over the phone. I need to have a family meeting with you and your sister. A family meeting, Raymond repeated, sounding concerned. Mom, is everything okay? Are you sick? I'm not sick, I said, but there's something very important I need to discuss with you and Geneva. I need you both here this weekend. Can you come?" "Of course," Raymond said. "Mom, you're scaring me. What's this about?" "I'll explain everything when you get here," I said. "Just please come, and Raymond, don't tell your father I called you. I want this to be a surprise." "Now you're really scaring me," Raymond said. "But okay, I'll catch a flight tomorrow. I'll be there Friday night." I had a similar conversation with Geneva. Both my children agreed to come home, though they were clearly worried about what was going on. Good. I needed them worried enough to take this seriously. Next, I met with Raymond Curtis and Geneva Foster, my divorce attorney and my private investigator, to prepare for the family meeting. "We need to present the evidence in a logical order," Raymond Curtis explained. "First, we establish your cognitive credibility with the doctor's report. Then we present the financial evidence. Then the affair evidence. Then we tie it all together by showing how Theodore has been gaslighting you to cover it up." "I've prepared a presentation," Geneva Foster said, pulling out her laptop. "I've organized all the evidence into a PowerPoint presentation with clear documentation. Financial records, photos, timeline of events. Everything your children will need to see to understand what's been happening." "What if they don't believe me?" I asked nervously. "What if they think this is all confusion on my part, like Theodore said?" "That's why we're starting with the doctor's report," Raymond Curtis said. "If your children see that a medical professional has certified you as cognitively normal, it's going to be much harder for them to dismiss the rest of the evidence as confusion." Over the next 2 days, we prepared everything. We organized the evidence into a clear, undeniable presentation. We anticipated every question my children might ask and prepared answers. We made copies of every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. Theodore didn't know any of this was happening. As far as he knew, I'd taken his threat to heart and was too scared to tell anyone about his affair. He had no idea that his children were flying home for a family meeting where I was going to expose everything. On Friday evening, Raymond arrived from California. On Saturday morning, Geneva arrived from Texas. Theodore was surprised to see them. "What are you two doing here?" Theodore asked when Geneva walked through the door with her husband and kids. "Mom called us," Geneva said. "She said she needed to have a family meeting." Theodore looked at me, and I saw the flash of concern in his eyes, but he covered it quickly. "A family meeting? Opal, what's this about?" "You'll find out at the meeting," I said calmly. "It's at 2 o'clock this afternoon, in the living room." "I don't understand," Theodore said. "Why didn't you tell me we were having a family meeting?" "Because the meeting is about you," I said, "and I wanted it to be a surprise." At 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, we all gathered in the living room. My son Raymond and his wife Estelle. My daughter Geneva and her husband Curtis. Their children were upstairs playing. I didn't want them to hear what was about to be discussed. Theodore sat in his usual armchair, looking confused and a bit nervous. My divorce attorney Raymond Curtis and private investigator Geneva Foster sat on either side of me on the couch. My children and their spouses sat in chairs facing us. "Thank you all for coming," I began. "I know you're wondering why I called this meeting. The reason is simple. I need to tell you something very important about your father. And I need you to hear me out completely before you say anything, because what I'm about to tell you is going to be shocking." "Mom, you're scaring us," Raymond said. "What's going on?" "Let me start by addressing something your father has probably told you," I said. "Over the past few months, Theodore has been telling people that I've been having memory problems, that I've been forgetful and confused, that he's worried I might have dementia. Is that true? Has he said these things to you?" Raymond and Geneva looked at each other. Geneva spoke first. "Yes. Dad called me a few months ago and said you'd been forgetting things a lot. He said he was taking you to the doctor to get checked out." "He told me the same thing," Raymond said. "He said you'd been putting things in weird places and forgetting conversations. He was really worried about you." "I thought as much," I said. "Now I want to show you something." I pulled out a copy of my doctor's report from Dr. Curtis Thompson. "This is the report from the doctor's appointment Theodore mentioned. As you can see, the doctor performed extensive cognitive testing, and his conclusion was that my cognitive function is completely normal. I do not have dementia. I do not have Alzheimer's. I do not have memory problems. According to this doctor, my brain is working just fine. I passed the report to Raymond and Geneva so they could read it themselves. But Dad said you were having memory problems, Geneva said, confused. If the doctor said you're fine, why didn't Dad tell us that? Because it didn't fit the narrative he was building, I said. You see, Theodore has been lying to you. He's been telling everyone I have memory problems because he wanted to discredit me in advance. He wanted to make sure that if I ever discovered what he was doing and tried to tell anyone, people would think I was confused and not believe me. What he was doing, Raymond repeated. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that your father has been having an affair, I said, and he's been spending our retirement money on his mistress. The room went completely silent. Raymond and Geneva stared at me in shock. Theodore's face went pale. That's ridiculous, Theodore said quickly. Opal, this is exactly what I was worried about. You're confused. You're making accusations that aren't true. I'm not confused, I said calmly, and I have proof. Geneva, would you please start the presentation? Geneva Foster opened her laptop and connected it to our TV screen. Up on the screen came a PowerPoint presentation titled Evidence of Theodore Martinez's Affair and Financial Misconduct. What I'm about to show you is the result of a 2-week investigation by a licensed private investigator, I said. Everything you're about to see is documented and verified. The first slide showed our investment account statements from 6 months ago, when we deposited $380,000 from the sale of our house. The next slide showed our most recent statement, $127,000. As you can see, $253,000 has been withdrawn from our joint investment account over the past 6 months, I explained. That's more than half our retirement savings. Where did the money go? Raymond asked, looking shocked. I'll show you, I said. Geneva clicked to the next slide. It showed bank statements for an account in Theodore's name only, with deposits matching the withdrawals from our investment account. Your father opened a separate bank account without telling me, I said. He transferred our retirement money into this account, and then he spent it on this woman. The next slide showed a photo of Theodore with a young woman. They were holding hands and walking into a restaurant together. The timestamp on the photo showed it was taken 3 weeks ago. This is Minnie Parker, I said. She's 32 years old. Your father has been having an affair with her for the past 8 months. Geneva gasped. Raymond looked like he was going to be sick. Theodore jumped out of his chair. This is outrageous, Theodore shouted. You hired someone to follow me, to take pictures of me. This is an invasion of privacy. Sit down, Theodore, I said coldly. I'm not done. Geneva Foster clicked through more slides. Photos of Theodore and Minnie together. The lease agreement for the apartment Theodore had rented for her, $2,500 per month, paid with our money. The title for the car Theodore had bought her, $35,000, paid with our money. Credit card statements showing Theodore taking Minnie on trips, buying her jewelry, paying for expensive dinners. Over the past 6 months, your father has spent $253,000 of our retirement money on his mistress, I said. Money I worked for, money we saved together, money from the house we raised you in. He gave it all to a woman who's barely older than you are. Raymond and Geneva looked devastated. Raymond's wife Estelle was crying. Geneva's husband Curtis had his arm around Geneva, who looked like she was in shock. Mom, I don't understand, Raymond said. Why would Dad do this? Because he's selfish, I said simply. Because he wanted to have an affair and spend money on his mistress, and he didn't care that it would destroy our retirement security. This is all a misunderstanding, Theodore tried again, but his voice was weak. Opal, you've taken things out of context. There is no context that makes this okay, Geneva said, her voice rising. She turned to Theodore. Dad, I just looked at those bank statements. You withdrew $50,000 in one transaction. Where did that money go? I invested it, Theodore stammered. You invested it in a car for your mistress, Geneva said, pointing at the screen which showed the title for Minnie's car. This isn't an investment, Dad. This is theft. You stole from Mom. And the gaslighting, Raymond said, standing up. He walked over to Theodore, looking furious. You told us Mom was having memory problems so we wouldn't believe her if she found out. That's evil, Dad. That's actual evil. I was protecting the family, Theodore said desperately. I didn't want you two to be hurt by. You didn't want us to know what you were doing, Raymond interrupted. You didn't want to face consequences, so you tried to make Mom look crazy. You tried to make everyone think she had dementia. What kind of person does that? The kind of person who spends 6 months gaslighting his wife, I said. The kind of person who steals $253,000 from his family to spend on a mistress young enough to be his daughter. That's the kind of person your father is. Theodore looked at his children, and he must have seen in their faces that they believed me, that his lies weren't going to work this time, that I had one. You said no one would ever believe me, I said to Theodore, my voice steady. You said I was just a confused old woman and people would think this was dementia talking. But you were wrong. Your children believe me. And tomorrow, everyone else will too. What do you mean, everyone else? Theodore asked, his face going white. I mean that tomorrow, I'm going to send this presentation to everyone we know, I said. Our friends, our neighbors, your coworkers, everyone at your firm. Everyone is going to see exactly what kind of man you are. You can't do that, Theodore said. That would destroy my reputation. I'd lose my job. Good, I said, because that's exactly what you deserve. You said no one would believe me, but you were wrong. Today, your children believed me. Tomorrow, everyone will. Theodore looked around the room at the faces of his children, his son-in-law, his daughter-in-law, my attorney, my private investigator. Everyone was looking at him with disgust and disappointment. He'd lost, and he knew it. After the presentation, Theodore left the house. He said he was going to a hotel to think about things. Good riddance. After Theodore left, Raymond and Geneva asked if they could talk to me alone. Their spouses took the kids out for dinner, giving us privacy. Mom, I'm so sorry, Geneva said, tears streaming down her face. I should have known something was wrong. When Dad called me and said you were having memory problems, I should have talked to you directly instead of just believing him. It's not your fault, I said. Your father is very good at lying. He's had 45 years of practice. How long have you known? Raymond asked. About the affair and the money. I've suspected something was wrong for a few months, I admitted. I figured out Theodore was gaslighting me about 2 months ago. I found out about the affair and the money about a month ago. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Geneva asked. Because Theodore had spent months telling you I was having memory problems, I explained. If I'd called you a month ago and said your father was having an affair and stealing money, what would you have thought? Raymond and Geneva looked at each other. Honestly, Raymond said, we probably would have thought you were confused. Dad had really convinced us you were declining. Exactly, I said. That's why I had to wait. I had to gather all the evidence and present it in a way that was absolutely undeniable. I had to make it impossible for anyone to dismiss what I was saying as confusion or dementia. Well, it worked, Geneva said. Mom, we believe you completely, and we're here to support you. Whatever you need, lawyer fees, a place to stay, anything, we're here. Thank you, I said, feeling tears form. That means more to me than you know. What are you going to do? Raymond asked. Are you going to divorce Dad? Yes, I said firmly. I've already met with a divorce attorney. We'll be filing papers this week. What about the money? Geneva asked. The $253,000 Dad spent on his mistress. Can you get that back? My attorney says we have a good case, I explained. In a divorce, the court can order Theodore to reimburse the marital estate for money he wrongfully spent. It might not be the full $253,000, but we should be able to recover a significant portion. Good, Raymond said. Because, Mom, you worked for that money. You taught for 30 years. That's your retirement security. Dad had no right to give it to his mistress. I know, I said, and I'm going to make sure he pays for what he's done, not just financially. I want everyone to know what kind of person Theodore really is. I want his reputation destroyed the way he tried to destroy mine. You said you're going to send the presentation to everyone you know, Geneva asked. Tomorrow morning, I confirmed. I'm going to email it to everyone in our address book. Friends, neighbors, Theodore's coworkers. Everyone is going to see the evidence of what Theodore did. That's going to humiliate him, Raymond observed. Yes, it is, I said, and he deserves every bit of it. Theodore spent months trying to convince everyone I was losing my mind. He tried to destroy my credibility, so now I'm going to destroy his. He said no one would ever believe me. Tomorrow, everyone will, and Theodore will have to live with the consequences. That night, I composed an email. It was short and direct. Subject: the truth about Theodore Martinez. Dear friends and family, many of you have heard from my husband Theodore over the past few months that I've been experiencing memory problems. Theodore told many of you that he was worried I might be developing dementia. I want you to know that this is not true. I recently saw a doctor who performed extensive cognitive testing, and I was found to be completely cognitively normal. I do not have dementia. The reason Theodore has been telling people I have memory problems is because he has been trying to discredit me in advance of what I'm about to tell you. For the past 8 months, Theodore has been having an affair with a 32-year-old woman named Minnie Parker. During this time, he has withdrawn $253,000 from our joint investment account and spent it on his mistress, paying for her apartment, buying her a car, taking her on trips, and buying her expensive gifts. I have attached a presentation with complete documentation of Theodore's affair and financial misconduct, including bank statements, photos, and a private investigator's report. I am sharing this information because Theodore told me that no one would ever believe my accusations against him. He thought he could gaslight me and steal our retirement money without consequences. He was wrong. I have proof, and I want everyone to know the truth about what kind of man Theodore Martinez really is. Sincerely, Opal Martinez. I attached the PowerPoint presentation with all the evidence. Then I added every email address in our address book, nearly 200 people. Friends we'd known for decades, neighbors, people from our church, Theodore's coworkers and business associates, everyone. My finger hovered over the send button. This was it. Once I sent this email, there was no going back. Theodore's reputation would be destroyed. Everyone would know about his affair and the money he'd stolen. Theodore had said no one would ever believe me. He'd been so confident that his gaslighting had worked that people would think I was confused and dismiss my accusations. But he'd underestimated me, and now he was going to pay. I clicked send. The email went out to 200 people at 11:47 p.m. on Saturday night. By Sunday morning, Theodore's life was destroyed. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now, smash that like button, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Did Opal do the right thing? What should happen to Theodore? Where are you watching from? Sunday morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing nonstop. I looked at the screen and saw I had 63 missed calls, over 100 text messages, and more than 200 emails. The email I'd sent the night before, the one exposing Theodore's affair and the $253,000 he'd stolen, had reached everyone, and everyone was responding. I picked up my phone and started reading through the messages. Most of them were supportive. From my friend Ruthie, Opal, I am shocked. I had no idea Theodore was capable of something like this. I'm so sorry you've been going through this. If you need anything, a place to stay, someone to talk to, anything, please call me. I'm here for you. From our neighbor Curtis, I can't believe Theodore did this to you. What a disgusting man. My wife and I saw the presentation you sent. The evidence is undeniable. Opal, you are so brave for exposing him. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to help. From a woman at our church named Minnie. Opal, I want to apologize. Theodore told me last month that you were having memory problems and that he was struggling to care for you. I felt so sorry for him. Now I realize he was lying to cover up his affair. I'm disgusted with myself for believing him. I'm so sorry. Message after message from friends, neighbors, and acquaintances, all expressing shock, support, and apologies for believing Theodore's lies about my memory problems. But there were also messages from Theodore's side of things. And those messages told me that my email had done exactly what I'd intended. It had destroyed Theodore's reputation. From Theodore's business partner Porter, Opal, I received your email. I need to speak with Theodore immediately about this matter. The firm cannot be associated with this kind of behavior. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. From Theodore's boss at the accounting firm, Mrs. Martinez, thank you for the documentation you provided. We take allegations of financial misconduct very seriously. Theodore will need to meet with HR first thing Monday morning. From people who worked with Theodore, I always thought Theodore was such a stand-up guy. I guess you never really know people. I'm sorry for what you're going through. Theodore's professional reputation was destroyed. By the time the business day started Monday morning, everyone at his firm would know that Theodore Martinez, the respected accountant who'd been with the company for 20 years, was a cheater and a thief who'd stolen $250,000 from his wife to spend on his mistress. My phone rang again. This time it was my daughter, Geneva. "Mom, have you seen the responses to your email?" Geneva asked. "I've been reading them," I said. "It seems like everyone believes me." "They do," Geneva confirmed. "Mom, Dad's life is over. His business partner called me an hour ago. They're probably going to force Dad to resign from the firm. And I've been getting calls from people all morning saying they can't believe Dad would do something like this." "Good," I said. "Theodore said no one would ever believe me. He was wrong." "Mom, there's something else," Geneva said hesitantly. "Dad called me this morning. He's really upset. He's at a hotel and he says he doesn't know what to do. He asked if I could talk to you about maybe sending out another email saying the first one was a mistake." I actually laughed. "A mistake? Geneva, did your father really think I'd send out an email to 200 people saying, 'Oops, sorry, I was confused. My husband isn't actually a cheater and a thief'?" "I told him you wouldn't do it," Geneva said. "But Mom, he's desperate. He knows his career is over. His reputation is destroyed. Everyone knows what he did." "That's exactly what he deserves," I said firmly. "Geneva, your father spent months gaslighting me. He tried to convince everyone I had dementia so they wouldn't believe me if I exposed him. He thought he could steal our retirement money and get away with it. Well, he was wrong. And now he's facing the consequences." "I know," Geneva said. "And Mom, I'm on your side, completely. Dad did something terrible and he deserves everything that's happening to him. I just wanted to let you know he called." After I hung up with Geneva, my phone rang again. This time it was Theodore. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious what he had to say now that his lies had been exposed and his reputation destroyed. "Hello, Theodore," I said coldly. "Opal, you've destroyed me," Theodore said. His voice was shaking. He sounded like he'd been crying. "My business partner called me this morning and told me I need to resign from the firm. My boss said I have to meet with HR tomorrow and I'll probably be fired. Everyone I know has seen that email. My reputation is ruined. How could you do this to me?" "How could I do this to you?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Theodore, you had an affair. You stole $253,000 from me. You gaslit me for months, trying to make me think I was losing my mind. You told everyone I had dementia so they wouldn't believe me if I found out about your affair. And now you're asking how I could do this to you." "I made a mistake," Theodore said. "I had an affair. I spent money I shouldn't have spent. But Opal, did you have to tell everyone? Did you have to send that email to 200 people? You could have handled this privately." "You mean the way you handled your affair privately?" I asked. "Theodore, you didn't just have an affair. You systematically destroyed my credibility so you could cover it up. You told our children, our friends, our neighbors that I was mentally declining. You made people think I was confused and forgetful. You were setting it up so that if I ever found out about your affair, no one would believe me. I was trying to protect myself, Theodore admitted. Well, you failed, I said, because everyone believes me now. Everyone has seen the evidence. Everyone knows what you did. Your plan to discredit me backfired spectacularly, Theodore, and you have no one to blame but yourself. Opal, please, Theodore begged. Can't we work this out? Can't we go to counseling or something? I'll end things with Minnie. I'll pay back the money. Just please send out another email telling people it was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. It was theft and infidelity. And no, Theodore, we can't work this out. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be receiving the papers this week. Divorce, Theodore said, sounding shocked. Opal, we've been married for 45 years. You're really going to throw away our marriage over this? I'm not the one who threw away our marriage, I said. You did that when you decided to have an affair and steal our retirement money. Theodore, we're done. And if you call me again, I'll have my attorney contact you. I hung up. Monday morning, my phone rang again. This time it was Theodore's business partner, Porter. Mrs. Martinez, this is Porter Henderson from Henderson and Martinez Accounting, he said. I wanted to update you on the situation with Theodore. What's happened? I asked. Theodore came to the office this morning for his meeting with HR, Porter explained. After reviewing the evidence you provided in your email, the financial statements showing Theodore withdrawing money from your joint account to spend on his mistress, we've made a decision. Theodore is being terminated from the firm effective immediately. Good, I said. There's more, Porter continued. Mrs. Martinez, as you may know, Theodore and I have been business partners for 15 years. Our firm is called Henderson and Martinez. Having Theodore's name on the firm is no longer acceptable given what he's done. I'm buying out Theodore's partnership share and rebranding the firm. It will be Henderson Accounting going forward. I'm glad to hear that, I said. Porter, I'm sorry you got caught up in this. I know Theodore was your friend and business partner. Was is the key word, Porter said. Mrs. Martinez, I had no idea Theodore was capable of this kind of behavior. The gaslighting, the affair, the financial misconduct, it's disgusting. I want you to know that if you need any financial documents for your divorce proceedings, I'm happy to provide them. Theodore shouldn't get away with what he's done. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. After I hung up with Porter, I called my divorce attorney Raymond Curtis and told him the news. Theodore's been fired from his job, Raymond repeated. That's good for our case. It means Theodore won't have income to hide assets or make things difficult during the divorce proceedings. What happens next? I asked. Well, Theodore should be receiving the divorce papers today or tomorrow, Raymond explained. Once he's been served, he'll have 30 days to respond. Then we'll start the discovery process where both sides exchange financial documents. Given the evidence you've already gathered, the proof of the affair, and the $253,000 he spent on his mistress, I think we have a very strong case for an unequal division of assets in your favor. What does that mean? I asked. It means that instead of splitting everything 50-50, the judge can order Theodore to pay back the money he wrongfully spent, Raymond said. So you might end up with 70 or 80% of the marital assets to compensate for Theodore's misconduct. Plus, given the gaslighting and emotional abuse, we can also request alimony. I don't want alimony, I said. I just want my money back, the $253,000 Theodore stole. I understand, Raymond said. But Mrs. Martinez, you should consider alimony. You're 68 years old. Theodore destroyed your retirement security by spending your savings on his mistress. You're entitled to financial support from him. Can we see how the divorce proceedings go? I asked. Right now, I just want to focus on getting my money back. Fair enough, Raymond said. I'll keep you updated on next steps. Tuesday afternoon, I received a text from Theodore. I need to come by the condo to pick up some of my things. Will you be there at 3 p.m.? I didn't want to see Theodore, but I also didn't want him in the condo when I wasn't there. So I texted back, Fine, but I'm having someone here with me. I called my son Raymond and asked if he could come over. Raymond flew back to California on Monday morning, but Geneva and her husband Curtis were still in town, staying at a hotel. "Of course I'll be there," Curtis said when I called. "No way you should be alone with Dad after what he's done." At 3 o'clock, Theodore knocked on the door. I opened it with Curtis standing beside me. Theodore looked terrible. His face was pale and drawn. He had dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Hello, Opal," Theodore said quietly. "Curtis." Curtis just nodded, his expression cold. "I'm just here to get some clothes and personal items," Theodore said. "I'll be quick." "Fine," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "But Curtis is staying with me while you're here." Theodore went to our bedroom and started packing a suitcase with clothes. Curtis and I stood in the doorway watching him. "So where are you staying?" I asked. "Still at the hotel?" "Yes," Theodore said. "I can't afford to rent an apartment now that I don't have a job. I'm going to have to dip into my retirement account to pay for the hotel." "Your retirement account?" I repeated. "Theodore, we have a joint retirement account, and you already dipped into it to the tune of $253,000. "I mean my personal retirement account from the firm," Theodore clarified. "My 401(k)s. "Oh," I said. "Well, I'm sure Minnie will help you out. After all, you spent $253,000 on her. Surely she can let you stay at the apartment you rented for her." Theodore flinched. "I'm not seeing Minnie anymore. I ended things with her." "When?" I asked. "Sunday morning," Theodore said. "After your email went out and everyone found out about the affair, I called Minnie and told her it was over." "How did she take that?" I asked, genuinely curious. Theodore's face hardened. "Not well. She said I promised to leave you and marry her. She said I'd been telling her for months that our marriage was over and I was just waiting for the right time to ask for a divorce. When I told her I couldn't see her anymore, she said. She said some things I don't want to repeat." "Let me guess," I said. "She called you a liar and a user. She said you'd been stringing her along. She said you'd spent all that money on her and now you were just going to abandon her." Theodore looked at me surprised. "How did you know?" "Because that's exactly what you are," I said. "Theodore, you lied to Minnie just like you lied to me. You told her you were going to leave me and marry her so she'd keep sleeping with you. You spent our retirement money buying her affection. And now that you've been caught and you're facing consequences, you're abandoning her. That's who you are, a liar and a user." "I made mistakes," Theodore said quietly. "No," I corrected. "You made choices. You chose to have an affair. You chose to steal our money. You chose to gaslight me. You chose to try to convince everyone I had dementia. Those weren't mistakes, Theodore. Those were deliberate, calculated decisions. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices." Theodore was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, a bitter, angry laugh. "You never meant to hurt me. Theodore, you spent months making me think I was losing my mind. You moved my things around and then told me I'd put them there. You told me I'd said things I never said. You convinced our children I was mentally declining. You tried to destroy my credibility so you could steal our money and no one would believe me if I found out. How is that not meant to hurt me?" "I was trying to protect myself," Theodore said. "From what?" I demanded. "From being held accountable for your affair, from facing consequences for stealing our money. Theodore, you weren't protecting yourself. You were destroying me to cover up your crimes. There's a difference." Curtis spoke up for the first time. "Mr. Martinez, I think you should finish packing and leave. You're upsetting Opal." Theodore looked at Curtis, his son-in-law of 15 years, and seemed to realize that Curtis wasn't on his side anymore. That nobody was on his side anymore. Theodore finished packing his suitcase in silence. As he was leaving, he stopped at the door and turned back to me. "Opal, I know you hate me right now," Theodore said. "And I understand why. But I want you to know I did love you. For 45 years, I loved you. This affair with Minnie, it wasn't about not loving you. It was about me being selfish and stupid. I'm sorry for what I did. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." I looked at Theodore. The man I'd been married to for 45 years. The man who'd promised to love and cherish me. The man who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. Theodore, if you really loved me, you wouldn't have spent 6 months gaslighting me, I said quietly. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have tried to convince everyone I had dementia. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have stolen our retirement money to spend on a woman young enough to be your daughter. So no, Theodore, I don't think you loved me. I think you loved having control over me. I think you loved having me believe your lies. But that's not love. That's manipulation. Theodore opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it. He picked up his suitcase and walked out the door. I closed the door behind him and locked it. Are you okay? Curtis asked gently. No, I admitted, but I will be. 1 week after I sent out the email exposing Theodore's affair, I received a phone call from Minnie Parker, Theodore's mistress. Mrs. Martinez, a young woman's voice said when I answered. This is Minnie Parker. I need to talk to you about Theodore. I was surprised. Why are you calling me? Because Theodore lied to me, Minnie said, her voice shaking. And I think you deserve to know the truth about everything. What truth? I asked. Can I come see you? Minnie asked. I have some things to show you, things about Theodore, things I think will help you in your divorce. I was suspicious. Why would Theodore's mistress want to help me? But I was also curious, so I agreed to meet her. Minnie came to my condo that afternoon. She was younger than I'd realized. She looked like she could be in her late 20s rather than 32. She was pretty in an ordinary way, with brown hair and brown eyes. She looked nervous. Thank you for seeing me, Minnie said as she sat down on my couch. I know this must be awkward. That's one word for it, I said. Minnie, why are you here? Because Theodore lied to me, Minnie said. About everything. And when I found out, I realized he probably lied to you too, and I thought maybe we could help each other. Help each other how? I asked. Minnie pulled out her phone. Mrs. Martinez, Theodore told me that you two were separated. He said your marriage had been over for years. He said you were just staying together for financial reasons until you figured out how to divide your assets. He said once everything was settled, he'd divorce you and we'd get married. And you believed him? I asked. Yes, Minnie admitted. Because he was so convincing. He'd show me texts where you'd supposedly told him you wanted a divorce. He'd tell me stories about fights you two had where you told him you didn't love him anymore. He made it sound like your marriage was completely dead, and he was just waiting for the right time to make it official. But you found out he was lying, I guessed. Yes, Minnie said. After your email went out last Saturday and everyone found out about our affair, Theodore called me and said we had to break up. He said his reputation was destroyed and his career was over and he couldn't see me anymore. I was devastated, but I was also confused because Theodore had been telling me for months that he was going to marry me. So I started looking through some of the things Theodore had told me and sent me, and I realized he'd been lying about everything. What do you mean? I asked. The texts he showed me from you, the ones where you supposedly said you wanted a divorce, I realized those were fake, Minnie explained. Theodore had created fake screenshots to show me, and the stories about fights you two had, I realized those were probably fake too. I think Theodore was making everything up to convince me that your marriage was over so I'd keep sleeping with him. Minnie pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. They were text conversations between her and Theodore. In them, Theodore told Minnie he loved her and wanted to marry her. He said he was going to leave me soon. He said he couldn't wait to start his life with her. I have hundreds of texts like this, Minnie said. Texts where Theodore promised to marry me, promised to leave you, promised we'd have a future together. And I also have receipts and bank statements showing every dollar Theodore spent on me over the past 8 months. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because Theodore used both of us, Minnie said. He lied to you about having an affair. He lied to me about leaving you. He spent your money on me, money I didn't know was stolen from your retirement savings. Mrs. Martinez, I'm only 32. I'm a waitress. I couldn't afford the apartment I was living in or the car Theodore bought me. I thought Theodore was a successful accountant who could afford those things. I didn't know he was stealing from you to pay for them. So what do you want? I asked. I want to help you in your divorce, Minnie said. I want to give you copies of all the texts and emails Theodore sent me. I want to give you receipts showing everywhere Theodore took me and everything he bought me. I want to help you prove exactly how much money Theodore spent on the affair, and I want to testify in court if you need me to." "Why would you do that?" I asked, still suspicious. "You had an affair with my husband. Why would you help me?" "Because I'm angry," Minnie admitted. "Theodore lied to me for 8 months. He made me think we had a future together. He made me fall in love with him. And then the minute things got difficult, he abandoned me. He didn't even have the decency to break up with me in person. He just called me on the phone and said it was over. So yes, I'm angry. And I want Theodore to face consequences for what he did to both of us." I looked at Minnie, this young woman my husband had been having an affair with. The woman he'd spent $253,000 of our retirement money on. And I realized something. Theodore hadn't just betrayed me. He'd betrayed Minnie too. "Okay," I said. "Give me copies of everything you have. My attorney will be very interested to see it." Over the next hour, Minnie sent me copies of hundreds of text messages and emails between her and Theodore. She gave me copies of receipts from expensive dinners, trips, jewelry purchases. She gave me bank statements showing deposits Theodore had made into her account, money I didn't even know he'd been giving her on top of paying for her apartment and car. When we added it all up, the total was shocking. Theodore had spent $287,000 on Minnie, not $253,000 as I'd originally thought. There was an additional $34,000 that Theodore had hidden by giving Minnie cash or making direct deposits into her account. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm sorry," Minnie said as she was leaving. "I'm sorry I had an affair with your husband. If I'd known he was lying about your marriage being over, I never would have gotten involved with him. For what it's worth, I think what Theodore did to you, the gaslighting, trying to convince people you had dementia, is awful. You didn't deserve that." "Thank you," I said, and surprisingly, I meant it. "Minnie, I think Theodore lied to both of us. I don't blame you for believing him. He's very good at lying." After Minnie left, I called my attorney Raymond Curtis and told him about the new evidence. "This is incredible," Raymond said. "Mrs. Martinez, with this evidence, we can prove Theodore spent $287,000 on his affair, not $253,000. That's going to significantly strengthen our case. The judge is going to be very unsympathetic to Theodore." "Good," I said, "because Theodore doesn't deserve sympathy. He deserves to pay back every penny he stole from me." 2 weeks after I sent out my email exposing Theodore's affair, I received a phone call from a detective with the local police department. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Detective Raymond Foster with the Financial Crimes Unit," the detective said. "I'm calling about your husband, Theodore Martinez." "What about him?" I asked. "We've opened a criminal investigation into Theodore's financial activities," Detective Foster explained. "Based on information we received, we believe Theodore may have committed financial fraud and elder abuse." "Elder abuse," I repeated. "Who reported that?" "Actually, several people," Detective Foster said. "After you sent out your email documenting Theodore's affair and the money he stole from you, multiple people contacted our department expressing concern. They pointed out that Theodore systematically tried to convince everyone you were mentally incompetent, which could constitute psychological elder abuse. And the fact that he stole over $250,000 from you, while doing so could constitute financial exploitation of an elderly person." "I'm 68, I said. "I didn't realize that counted as elderly." "In legal terms, anyone over 65 is considered a vulnerable adult for purposes of elder abuse laws," Detective Foster explained. "Mrs. Martinez, would you be willing to come down to the station and give a formal statement about what Theodore did?" "Yes," I said, "absolutely." The next day, I went to the police station and spent 3 hours talking to Detective Foster. I told him everything. The gaslighting, Theodore moving my things and then claiming I'd done it, Theodore telling everyone I had memory problems, the doctor's report saying I was cognitively normal, the affair, the money Theodore had stolen, all of it. "Mrs. Martinez, I'm going to be frank with you," Detective Foster said when I finished. What Theodore did to you, the gaslighting combined with the financial theft, could potentially be prosecuted as elder abuse. The district attorney's office will need to review the case, but I think there's a good chance they'll decide to file charges. Criminal charges, I asked, against Theodore. Yes, Detective Foster confirmed. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. If convicted, Theodore could face up to 5 years in prison. I sat back in my chair, absorbing this information. Theodore could go to prison for what he'd done to me. What do you think I should do? I asked. That's up to you, Detective Foster said. You're the victim. If you want us to pursue charges, we will. If you don't want us to pursue charges, we won't. But Mrs. Martinez, I want you to understand, what Theodore did was serious. He didn't just steal money from you. He tried to destroy your credibility by convincing everyone you were mentally incompetent. That's psychological abuse. And combined with the financial theft, it could potentially be prosecuted as a crime. I thought about it. Did I want Theodore to go to prison? Part of me, the part that was still angry about what he'd done, said yes. Theodore deserved to be punished. He'd betrayed me, stolen from me, gaslit me for months. He deserved to face consequences. But another part of me, the part that had been married to Theodore for 45 years, hesitated. Theodore was the father of my children. He was their dad. Did I really want to send him to prison? Can I think about it? I asked. Of course, Detective Foster said. Take all the time you need. But Mrs. Martinez, I want you to know, you would not be sending Theodore to prison. Theodore sent himself to prison when he chose to commit crimes against you. You're just deciding whether to hold him accountable for those crimes. Before I continue, kindly subscribe now. Smash that like button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Should Opal press criminal charges? Does Theodore deserve prison? Where are you watching from? I spent 3 days thinking about whether to press criminal charges against Theodore. 3 days weighing justice against mercy, anger against compassion, what he deserved against what our children might have to endure. On the 3rd day, I made my decision. I called Detective Raymond Foster. I want to press charges, I told him. Theodore needs to be held accountable for what he did. I think you're making the right decision, Detective Foster said. I'll forward the case to the district attorney's office. They'll review the evidence and decide what charges to file. How long will that take? I asked. Usually a few weeks, Detective Foster said. But Mrs. Martinez, given the amount of evidence you've provided, the financial records, the private investigator's report, testimony from Theodore's mistress, the doctor's report about the gaslighting, I think the DA is going to move quickly on this. What Theodore did to you is textbook elder abuse. 2 weeks later, I received a call from an assistant district attorney named Geneva Harris. Mrs. Martinez, I'm calling to inform you that we've decided to file criminal charges against your husband Theodore Martinez, Ada Harris said. He's being charged with 1 count of financial exploitation of an elderly person, which is a Class C felony, and 1 count of psychological elder abuse, which is a Class D felony. What does that mean? I asked. It means that if convicted on both charges, Theodore could face up to 8 years in prison, Ada Harris explained. The financial exploitation charge carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. The psychological abuse charge carries a maximum of 3 years. The sentences could run consecutively, meaning one after the other. 8 years, I repeated, trying to absorb this. Theodore could spend 8 years in prison. Mrs. Martinez, I need to prepare you for what's going to happen next, Ada Harris continued. We'll be issuing a warrant for Theodore's arrest. Once he's arrested, he'll be arraigned and bail will be set. Then we'll move toward trial unless Theodore decides to accept a plea deal. You'll need to testify at trial if it goes that far. Are you prepared to do that? Yes, I said firmly. I'm prepared to testify. Good, Ada Harris said. Mrs. Martinez, I want you to know I've reviewed all the evidence in this case. What Theodore did to you was systematic, calculated, and cruel. He not only stole your money, he tried to destroy your credibility and your sanity. That's not just theft, that's abuse. and my office is committed to holding him accountable. 3 days later, Theodore was arrested. I wasn't there when it happened, but my daughter Geneva was. She called me from the police station where Theodore had been taken after his arrest. "Mom, they arrested Dad," Geneva said. Her voice was shaking. "2 police officers showed up at his hotel room this morning with a warrant. They handcuffed him and took him to the station. He called me from the police station and asked me to come down." "Are you there now?" I asked. "Yes," Geneva said. "Mom, Dad is a mess. He's crying. He keeps saying this is all a mistake, that he shouldn't be arrested for something that should be handled in divorce court. The police told him he's being charged with elder abuse. He's shocked." "He shouldn't be shocked," I said. "Theodore committed crimes against me. He's being held accountable for those crimes." "I know," Geneva said quietly. "Mom, I'm not defending Dad. What he did to you was terrible. But he's still my father, and it's hard to see him like this." "I understand," I said, and I did. Geneva was in an impossible position, supporting me while watching her father face criminal charges. "They're setting his bail at $50,000, Geneva continued. "Dad asked if I would help him post bail. Mom, what should I do?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to tell Geneva not to help Theodore, to let him sit in jail like he deserved. But Geneva was my daughter, and Theodore was her father. I couldn't ask her to choose between us. "Geneva, that's your decision," I said. "If you want to help your father post bail, I won't hold it against you. You're his daughter. It's natural that you'd want to help him." "But do you think I should?" Geneva asked. "I think you need to do what you feel is right," I said. "But Geneva, I want you to understand something. Theodore is not a victim here. He committed crimes. He's facing consequences. If you help him post bail, you're not rescuing an innocent man. You're helping a guilty man avoid sitting in jail while he waits for trial." Geneva was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're right. Mom, I'm not going to help Dad with bail. He needs to face the consequences of what he did. I'm going to tell him that I love him, but I can't help him with this." "I'm proud of you," I said, and I meant it. Theodore spent 3 days in jail before his attorney arranged for a bail bondsman to post his bail. When Theodore was released, he called me. "Opal, this has gone too far," Theodore said. His voice was cold and angry. "Criminal charges, you had me arrested. I could go to prison for 8 years because of you." "No," I corrected. "You could go to prison for 8 years because of what you did. You stole from me. You gaslit me. You tried to convince everyone I had dementia. Those are crimes, Theodore, and you're being held accountable." "This should be handled in divorce court, not criminal court," Theodore argued. "This is a family matter." "Elder abuse is not a family matter," I said. "It's a crime, and the district attorney agrees with me." "I can't believe you're doing this to me," Theodore said. "After 45 years of marriage, this is how you treat me." "After 45 years of marriage, this is how you treated me," I shot back. "You had an affair, you stole our retirement money, you spent 6 months gaslighting me, you tried to destroy my credibility, and now you're facing consequences. Theodore, you said no one would ever believe me. You were wrong. Everyone believes me. The police believe me. The district attorney believes me. And soon a jury will believe me too." Theodore hung up without another word. While the criminal case was moving forward, my divorce attorney Raymond Curtis was working on the divorce settlement. "Mrs. Martinez, I have good news," Raymond called to tell me 6 weeks after I'd filed for divorce. "Theodore's attorney has approached us about a settlement. Theodore wants to avoid going to trial for the divorce." "What kind of settlement?" I asked. "Theodore is offering to give you 75% of all marital assets," Raymond explained. "That includes the condo, both retirement accounts, both cars, and all savings. He's also agreeing to pay you alimony of $3,000 per month for 10 years. I did the math in my head. Between the condo, the retirement accounts, and the savings we had left, 75% of our marital assets would be approximately $420,000. Plus $3,000 per month in alimony for 10 years would be an additional $360,000. So Theodore is offering me $780,000 total? I asked. Yes, Raymond confirmed. It's a very good offer, Mrs. Martinez. Much better than what we'd likely get if we went to trial. Why is Theodore offering so much? I asked suspiciously. What does he want in return? He wants you to ask the district attorney to drop the criminal charges, Raymond said. That's the condition of the settlement. Theodore will give you 75% of everything and pay alimony, but only if you agree to ask the DA to drop the elder abuse charges. I was silent for a long moment. Theodore was trying to buy his way out of a prison sentence. He was offering me a generous divorce settlement in exchange for my cooperation in making the criminal charges go away. What do you think I should do? I asked Raymond. That's not a legal question. That's a personal question, Raymond said. From a purely financial standpoint, this settlement is excellent. You'd be very well taken care of for the rest of your life. But Mrs. Martinez, you need to ask yourself, is money more important than seeing Theodore held criminally accountable for what he did to you? I thought about it. $780,000 was a lot of money. It would give me financial security for the rest of my life. I'd never have to worry about money again. But Theodore would walk away without a criminal conviction. He'd avoid prison. He'd get to tell people that we'd had a contentious divorce, but he'd never have to admit that he'd committed crimes against me. No, I said finally. I'm not taking the deal. Are you sure? Raymond asked. Mrs. Martinez, this is a very generous offer. I'm sure, I said firmly. Raymond, Theodore spent 6 months trying to convince everyone I was losing my mind. He tried to destroy my credibility so he could steal from me, and no one would believe me if I exposed him. Money can't make up for that. I want Theodore to be held accountable. I want him to have a criminal conviction on his record. I want everyone to know that what he did wasn't just a marital dispute, it was a crime. I understand, Raymond said. I'll call Theodore's attorney and reject the settlement offer. We'll proceed with the divorce trial. Good, I said. And Raymond, tell Theodore's attorney something for me. Tell them that Theodore said no one would ever believe me, but everyone does. And soon, a judge and jury will too. 4 months after Theodore's arrest, his criminal trial began. The courtroom was packed. My children Raymond and Geneva were there, sitting behind me in the gallery. Theodore's family was there too, sitting on his side of the courtroom. Friends, neighbors, and even some reporters were there. The case had gotten local media attention because of the unusual combination of gaslighting and financial theft. Theodore sat at the defense table with his attorney, a slick-looking man named Porter Green. Theodore looked thinner than I'd ever seen him, and older. The past 4 months of legal battles had taken their toll. Ada Geneva, Harris stood up to give her opening statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about betrayal, Ada Harris began. The defendant, Theodore Martinez, was married to Opal Martinez for 45 years. During that time, Opal trusted Theodore with their finances. She trusted him with their retirement savings, and she trusted that he would be honest with her. But Theodore violated that trust in the worst possible way, Ada Harris continued. Over a period of 8 months, Theodore systematically stole $287,000 from their joint accounts and spent it on his mistress. When Opal began to notice financial irregularities, Theodore didn't come clean. Instead, he launched a campaign of psychological abuse designed to make Opal doubt her own sanity. Ada Harris walked over to a display board showing a timeline of events. Theodore moved Opal's belongings and then claimed she'd misplaced them. He told her she'd said things she never said. He convinced their children, their friends, and their neighbors that Opal was developing dementia. He took her to a doctor for memory problems that didn't exist. All of this was designed to destroy Opal's credibility so that if she discovered Theodore's affair and theft, no one would believe her. This is not a case about a marital dispute, Ada Harris said, turning to face the jury. This is a case about elder abuse. Theodore Martinez systematically abused his wife, psychologically and financially, for his own benefit, and the state is asking you to hold him accountable for those crimes. Theodore's attorney, Porter Green, gave his opening statement next. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about a marriage that fell apart, Green began. Theodore and Opal Martinez were married for 45 years. Like many long marriages, theirs had its ups and downs. Yes, Theodore had an affair. Yes, he spent money on that affair that should have stayed in the marital accounts. That was wrong, but it's not a crime. The prosecution wants you to believe that Theodore is some kind of monster who deliberately abused his elderly wife, Green continued. But the truth is much simpler. Theodore and Opal had a troubled marriage. They disagreed about money. They disagreed about how much time to spend with their adult children. And yes, Opal did have some memory problems, minor ones, the kind many people in their late 60s experience. Theodore wasn't gaslighting his wife. He was genuinely concerned about her cognitive health. The prosecution has taken a difficult divorce and turned it into a criminal case, Green said. But you, the jury, have the power to see through this overreach. Theodore Martinez is not a criminal. He's a man whose marriage fell apart, who made some bad decisions, but who does not deserve to go to prison. Over the next 2 weeks, the prosecution presented their case. They called me to the stand, and I testified about the gaslighting, the items Theodore had moved, the conversations he'd denied, the months of psychological manipulation. They called Dr. Curtis Thompson, my doctor, who testified that my cognitive function was completely normal and that there was no medical evidence I had dementia or memory problems. They called Geneva Foster, the private investigator, who testified about her investigation into Theodore's affair and presented financial records showing the $287,000 Theodore had spent on Minnie Parker. They called Minnie Parker herself, who testified about Theodore's lies and promises, and who provided copies of hundreds of text messages and emails showing Theodore's deception. They called friends and neighbors who testified that Theodore had told them I was developing dementia and that they should be concerned about my mental health. And they called my children Raymond and Geneva, who testified about how Theodore had convinced them their mother was mentally declining, only for them to discover it was all a lie. The evidence was overwhelming. Theodore's attorney tried to argue that I was exaggerating the gaslighting, that Theodore had genuine concerns about my memory, that the affair was a personal matter and not a crime. But the jury didn't buy it. After 2 weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. They deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous, guilty on both counts. Theodore was convicted of financial exploitation of an elderly person and psychological elder abuse. 2 months after the guilty verdict, we returned to court for Theodore's sentencing. Judge Curtis Foster looked at Theodore with an expression of disgust. "Mr. Martinez, I've been a judge for 23 years, and I've seen a lot of bad behavior in that time. But what you did to your wife is among the most calculated and cruel things I've ever encountered." "You didn't just steal from Mrs. Martinez," Judge Foster continued. "You spent months systematically destroying her credibility. You tried to convince everyone, including your own children, that she was losing her mind. You manipulated people's natural sympathy for a husband caring for a wife with dementia, all so you could steal from her with impunity. That level of manipulation and psychological abuse is truly reprehensible. For the count of financial exploitation of an elderly person, I'm sentencing you to 5 years in state prison," Judge Foster said. "For the count of psychological elder abuse, I'm sentencing you to 3 years in state prison. These sentences will run consecutively, meaning you'll serve a total of 8 years. 8 years. Theodore was going to prison for 8 years. Additionally, Judge Foster continued, I'm ordering you to pay restitution to Mrs. Martinez in the amount of $287,000, the full amount you stole from her. This restitution must be paid in full before you're released from prison. If you cannot pay it, your prison sentence may be extended." Theodore's face was pale. His attorney stood up. "Your Honor, my client would like to address the court before sentencing is finalized." "Very well," Judge Foster said. "Mr. Martinez, you may speak." Theodore stood up slowly. He looked at me sitting in the gallery, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. "Opal, I'm sorry," Theodore said, his voice shaking. I know I've said that before and you didn't believe me, but I want you to know I am truly sorry for what I did to you. The affair, the money, the gaslighting, all of it. I was selfish and stupid and cruel, and I deserve to go to prison for what I did. I spent 45 years married to you, Theodore continued. 45 years with a woman who was loyal and loving and who trusted me, and I betrayed that trust in the worst possible way. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect our children to forgive me, but I want you to know that I recognize what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. Theodore sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Foster banged his gavel. The sentence stands. Mr. Martinez, you'll be remanded into custody immediately and transported to state prison to begin serving your sentence. 2 bailiffs came forward and put handcuffs on Theodore. As they led him out of the courtroom, Theodore looked back at me one more time. Our eyes met. And then he was gone. 6 months after Theodore was sent to prison, I sat in my newly redecorated condo sipping coffee and looking out the window at the sunrise. The divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier. Because Theodore was convicted of crimes against me, the judge had awarded me 85% of our marital assets, even more than the 75% Theodore had offered in the settlement I'd rejected. I got the condo, both cars, most of the retirement savings. Theodore got 15% and a prison sentence. I was financially secure. More than secure, I was comfortable. I'd never have to worry about money again. But more importantly, I had my dignity back, my reputation back, my sense of self back. Theodore had tried to convince everyone I was losing my mind. He'd tried to gaslight me into doubting my own sanity. He'd tried to destroy my credibility so he could steal from me without consequences. But he'd failed because I'd fought back. I'd gathered evidence. I'd told the truth, and everyone had believed me. My phone rang. It was my daughter, Geneva. Hi, Mom, Geneva said. Just calling to check on you. How are you doing? I'm good, I said, and I meant it. Really good, actually. I'm glad, Geneva said. Mom, I'm so proud of you for standing up to Dad, for fighting back, for not letting him get away with what he did. Thank you, sweetheart, I said. That means a lot. Have you heard from Dad? Geneva asked hesitantly. He's written me a few letters from prison, I admitted. I haven't responded. Are you going to? Geneva asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants closure, but another part of me thinks the best closure is just moving on with my life and letting Theodore serve his sentence. I think that's fair, Geneva said. Mom, I need to tell you something. Raymond and I went to visit Dad in prison last week. How is he? I asked. He's struggling, Geneva admitted. Prison is hard on him. He's lost a lot of weight. He looks older. But Mom, he's also different. He's in therapy. He's taking classes about abuse and healthy relationships. He says he's trying to understand why he did what he did so he doesn't repeat those patterns. That's good, I said. Geneva, I don't hate your father. I'm angry at him for what he did, but I don't hate him. And if he's genuinely trying to change, I'm glad. He asked about you, Geneva said. He wanted to know if you were okay, if you were happy. I told him you were doing well. What did he say? I asked. He said he was glad, Geneva replied. He said you deserve to be happy, and Mom, I think he meant it. After I hung up with Geneva, I thought about Theodore sitting in prison. For 45 years, he'd been my husband, my partner, the father of my children. Now he was a convicted felon serving 8 years for what he'd done to me. Did I feel guilty about it? Number Theodore had made his choices. He'd chosen to have an affair. He'd chosen to steal our money. He'd chosen to gaslight me for months. And now he was facing the consequences of those choices. Did I feel satisfied? Not exactly. There was no satisfaction in seeing the father of my children go to prison. But there was a sense of justice. A sense that the world had been set right. Theodore had said no one would ever believe me. He'd been so confident that his gaslighting had worked, that people would think I was confused and dismiss my accusations. But he'd been wrong. Everyone had believed me. The police had believed me. The district attorney had believed me. The jury had believed me. My children had believed me. And Theodore had learned, too late, that underestimating a 68-year-old woman was the biggest mistake of his life. 1 year after Theodore went to prison, I received a letter from him. It was different from the others he'd sent, longer, more thoughtful, more honest. Dear Opal, I know I have no right to write to you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm writing anyway because there are things I need to say, whether you read them or not. I've been in prison for a year now. It's been the hardest year of my life, but it's also been the most important year. Because for the first time in my life, I've had to really look at myself and acknowledge what I am. A man who betrayed the woman he loved, who stole from her, who tried to destroy her credibility to cover up his crimes. I've been in therapy every week. I've been forced to examine why I did what I did. And I've learned something. I did it because I'm a coward. I was too much of a coward to end our marriage if I wasn't happy. I was too much of a coward to admit I'd had an affair. I was too much of a coward to face consequences for stealing our money. So instead, I tried to make you look crazy so no one would believe you if you exposed me. That was cowardly, and cruel, and wrong. Opal, I know I can never make up for what I did to you. I can never give you back the 6 months of your life I stole when I was gaslighting you. I can never undo the damage I did to your sense of trust and safety. All I can do is say, I'm sorry, and I'm trying to become a better person so I never hurt anyone like this again. When I get out of prison in 7 years, I don't expect to have a relationship with you. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope you're happy. You deserve to be happy. You were right when you said that everyone believed you. I thought I was so smart, so clever. I thought I'd set up the perfect situation where you'd be discredited before you could expose me. But I underestimated you. You're stronger, smarter, and braver than I ever gave you credit for. I'm glad you fought back. I'm glad you exposed me. I'm glad I'm in prison, because I deserve to be here, and you deserve justice. Take care of yourself, Opal. Theodore. I read the letter twice, then I put it in a drawer with the others. I didn't respond. Maybe I never would. But I kept the letter because it represented something important. Theodore finally acknowledging the truth. My husband had said no one would ever believe me, but everyone did. And in the end, even Theodore had to admit that I'd been right all along. This story proves that gaslighting is psychological abuse and a crime. Evidence defeats manipulation. Elder abuse includes financial and psychological harm. Victims can fight back and win. Truth prevails over calculated lies. Justice matters more than money. No one is too old to stand up for themselves. Underestimating survivors is a fatal mistake. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful justice stories. Smash that like button. Turn on notifications. Drop a comment. Did Opal make the right choice, rejecting the settlement? Does Theodore deserve forgiveness after 8 years? Where are you watching from? United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Jamaica, South Africa, Australia, Trinidad, Philippines. Remember, if someone is gaslighting you, document everything. Save texts, emails, record conversations if legal, get medical evaluation proving cognitive health. Tell trusted people what's happening. Contact police if elder abuse. Press criminal charges, not just divorce. Evidence defeats manipulation. You deserve justice. Your perception is valid. Gaslighting is abuse. Fight back. You're stronger than they think. Thank you for following Opal's journey from victim to victor.